In the year 1951, men and women were pursuing the American dream, following hard economic times that were left over by the Great Depression and the years of fighting in the Second World War. The average home cost was around $8,000, and the average price for a car was $1,750. There were also some really memorable events that occurred during that year as well. The longest game in NBA history was played on January 6th between the Indianapolis Olympians and the Rochester Royals. After 78 minutes of gameplay and a record 6 overtimes, the game ended with a score of 75-73 in favor of Indianapolis. In San Diego, California, founder and owner Robert Peterson opened the first Jack in the Box restaurant on February 21st. The restaurant focused initially on drive-through service, even though it was not a novel thing at the time. Peterson enhanced this system with a drive-through window and an intercom service with a giant clown on top of the roof greeting customers. This service proved to be much faster than the traditional drive-in window and has been widely implemented ever since. On February 27th, the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This amendment limits the number of terms a president may serve to 2. It came after FDR won the election 4 terms in a row. Due to the Great Depression and the Second World War, Americans didn't want to change leadership during such a challenging time. Eventually, Congress felt it was an American political tradition to only serve 2 terms, as serving more would be similar to a monarchy. Hank Ketcham's best-selling comic strip, Dennis the Menace, appeared in 16 newspapers across the U.S. for the first time on March 12th. The humor is based on the interaction of 5-year-old Dennis Mitchell with his parents, neighbors, and various friends. The first panel featured a motorcycle cop who had stopped the family car. As the policeman writes out a speeding ticket, Dennis leans out the window and shouts, "You didn't catch us, we ran out of gas." The comic strip became so popular and successful that it was adapted into other media as well, including television shows and feature films. The Korean War was still going on and didn't have an end in sight. General Douglas MacArthur was fired by President Truman on April 11th for insubordination. Shortly after, President Truman and his new military commanders started peace talks. Still, the fighting continued along the 38th parallel as negotiations stalled. On June 25th, RCA broadcast the first color TV episode from a variety show called Premiere. It aired from 4:35 to 5:34 in the afternoon, but it only reached 4 cities: Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Although the colors were not quite true to life, the first program was a success. 2 days later, CBS began airing the first regularly scheduled color television series, The World Is Yours, with Ivan Sanderson. On July 16th, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger was published, giving a new hero to teens everywhere. The book about a confused teenager disillusioned by the adult world is an instant hit and was taught in high schools for many years. Walt Disney's 13th animated feature film, Alice in Wonderland, premiered in New York City on July 28th. Disney had been trying to create the film adaptation of the classic Lewis Carroll novel since the 1930s. When the film was finally finished and released in 1951, it was considered a flop and received negative reviews from the critics. The film was re-released in the 1970s to a much more favorable critical response. On September 28th, the science fiction film The Day the Earth Stood Still was released. The film was set in the Cold War during the early stages of the nuclear arms race, and it involved a humanoid alien visitor who comes to Earth accompanied by a powerful robot, all done to deliver an important message that will affect the entire human race. I Love Lucy premiered on October 15th, 1951. In the first season, the show reached over 10 million viewers and went on to become one of television's most beloved and enduring programs of all time. When CBS first approached Lucille Ball with the offer of turning her popular radio show, My Favorite Husband, into a television series, she was agreeable with one condition: that her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, would be cast in the role of her spouse. On October 16th, Judy Garland began her concert series at the Palace in New York City. The original 4-week run was extended to a record 19 weeks. This was all due to the incredible demand for tickets. Everyone who saw her would never forget the experience of seeing her live on stage. On October 20th, the CBS Eye Logo made its debut on television. Creative director Bill Golden, who designed the logo, was inspired when he drove through the Pennsylvania Dutch country. He became intrigued by the hex symbols resembling the human eye that were drawn on Shaker barns, all done to ward off evil spirits. With the help of a graphic artist named Kurt Ways, the eye logo was created. Originally, the center of the eye was a camera iris that opened and shut. Every time it opened, a viewer would see CBS Television Network written on it. On December 11th, baseball legend Joe Dimaggio announced that he was going to retire. He spent his entire career playing for the New York Yankees as a center fielder and had just come off a World Series win. Dimaggio is widely regarded as one of the best baseball players in history and was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1955.